and welcome everyone. Yes, Hans, we have already started. We were just rolling out our promo video just to get you all hyped up for today's webinar. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you guys are joining us from today. Hope you're having a fantastic Thursday and week so far. Just to make sure that everyone can see and hear us, find the chat and let us know where you are joining us from today. That way we'll know that we are good. Hi from Mongolia. Wow. You're traveling far, Hans. How's it over there? So I'm guessing Hans can hear us. Anyone else? Is there a problem with the sound? Video? Just let us know. Yeah, there's a short delay, so it's no problem that we're gonna just wait a couple of more seconds to see if everything's a flood. We're flooded with messages, so everything is working great. We see people from New Jersey, UK, Warsaw, Czech Republic, Sweden. Great. Well, awesome to have you with us. We have a really awesome webinar planned for you guys today, which we're going to be starting in just a few moments. But if this is the first time you are joining one of our events, welcome. We hold our webinars, roundtables, and onboarding days to share some insightful information with the SEO community and help you make the most of our tools and hopefully give you something to walk away with that will help you increase the traffic to your website. Today, we are going to talk about keyword research. Keyword research can reveal vital information that will help you grow your business. You can learn what terms people actually look for, use to find your business online, what the competition for those keywords is, and you can then use that data to guide your content marketing forward, which will increase your organic traffic, visibility, and hopefully rankings as well. So that sort of does it for the shortest intro that I wanted to give. My name is Andrew, and I'm part of the marketing team over at SEO Ranking. And today we are joined by Matt Bailey. Thank you, Matt, for taking the time to do this with us.
If you can say hi.
Welcome. Thank you. So Matt has 25 years of experience in SEO and growing, and he has taught Microsoft, Orange, Hewlett-Packard, IBM, and many others how to learn from the keywords, from different keywords. Plus, Matt has not only taught SEO, but he has his own training curriculum, which is used by multiple universities. He is a digital marketing instructor, published author, and as well, he's also the host of a popular marketing podcast called Endless Coffee Cup. We will make sure to throw you guys a link to that a bit later on. So today's webinar is the agenda is as follows. So Matt has laid out all the different points that he's going to cover. We're going to have about 35 to 40 minutes devoted to Matt's presentation. And we will also have a separate Q&A session at the very end where we'll try to address all the questions that you have submitted throughout the webinar. But if you have any questions and they are relevant for the moment, just don't hesitate to throw them into the chat, and I will do my best to get Matt to answer your questions. A couple of more things before we actually move on. As you can see, SEO Ranking is an all-in-one platform for SEO and digital marketing. It includes a lot of different tools and features to cover your entire range of tasks. And as you can see, we have a lot of different awards from industry experts and as well from our users. We also have a huge database of domains and keywords for the US market, and it is constantly growing, and we're always cleaning it up to make sure that only the most we don't have trashy keywords in there, because obviously that's a lot of databases include that. And the final word about SEO Ranking is that we are trying to include we do our best to have the tools that can be leveraged by newbies, and as well we try to provide professionals and experts with as much data as possible and help them streamline their processes. Whew. Okay, that was the intro. I tried to squeeze it all in just to give you guys more time with Matt. So without further ado, I would love to also listen in on what Matt has to share today. So Matt, if you could please share your screen and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate the introduction. And everyone, we're going to go back and forth between PowerPoint and between actually this software here. And so that's what we're going to work on here. And let me make sure that, all right, hopefully everyone could see this. I've got a few slides, and then I'm going to jump into SE ranking and just walk you through some of the things that I do. But as Andrew said, I've been doing SEO for about 25 years. And one thing that has been constant throughout is the emphasis on keywords. I love keywords because I've been involved in other types of marketing where we do market research, surveys, focus groups, trying to get into the mind of the customer and learning what it is that they want. How do they make decisions? But until keywords came around, until search engines started, we weren't getting the real story. We weren't getting the truth of what people wanted. Keywords represent the mind of the consumer at that moment, at the point of need. And so every other type of surveys or focus groups, there's an interesting book I'll recommend. It's called Everybody Lies. Because when we're talking with another human or they want to know what we think, naturally, we don't want to be controversial. We don't want to say things that maybe other people won't like. But yet when we sit down in front of Google, we tell the truth because we've been taught the more honest we are in the search, the more we clarify what we want, the better results we'll get. And so Google is probably one of the only places that we are honest, and Google knows more about us than family, friends, and spouses. So let's dig into why keyword research is so powerful. One of the things is it is definitely where people go to find something. Nowhere else are people going and saying, this is exactly what I want. And here's the features that are important to me. And so the words people use, how they phrase those words, important concepts that they give, all are giving us intelligence about what people want. And most importantly, what we want to discover are the questions that people ask. That's what we're driving to. What do they want to know? Now, of course, we need to understand that a lot of times people will say, well, you can do social listening. And I don't like social listening that much. And the main reason is we can see here monthly active users. And of course, Facebook's at the top and Instagram and TikTok are kind of fighting it out. But here's the thing. Only 10% of users on social media will actually create new content. About 90% of users on social media never post anything. They lurk, they watch, they listen, but they never create. Whereas on Google, everyone's there. I want you to see, in proportion to social media and some of these other channels, just how big Google is. And when we talk about the size of the database and SE ranking, what does that mean? So what I'm looking at comparatively, Facebook's here at about 2,500, and that's millions, okay? 2,500 millions. Instagram and TikTok, you know, they are fighting around here in the millions as well. But when I compare that, now this is monthly active users. When I compare that to the amount of Google searches per day, it's no comparison. Per day, the amount of searches, it's estimated to be around 7 billion searches per day. Now, compare that with the monthly active users, there's no comparison. We're up in the billions of people searching for information. And every time they search for information, they're giving us information. They're giving us what we need to know in order to target them more effectively. Here's what I love about keywords. Number one, I learn intent. I learn what people want, but I also learn what they associate that need with. Do they associate it with a time frame, a location, a specific attribute? That's what I want to know. Also, if I'm doing brand research, if I do some keyword research about a brand, I want to know what are other words that people are associating with that brand when they search for it. That's very helpful, and it can be very eye-opening if you're working with any brands to learn those types of things. Directions, references, questions, those are types of information that we're looking for that will help us understand more, not just about individual users, but what I'm looking for is around this specific area. What are the questions people are asking? Because that's what drives content. When I know the questions, then I can create the content to answer those questions. So I start with a seed list, and this is where I just start thinking of what are the basic keywords that someone would search for. And I'll get about 5 or 10 of those. And then I start digging into the keywords. Now, when I start digging into keywords, there's a couple of concepts here. Number one is the short tail. The short tail are 1 to 2 word phrases. And this is what SEOs typically are drawn to, because I want those words. I want to rank for those words. And so they'll go look and see. And that's just the beginning of keyword research. The only problem with this is, yes, they're popular, they're short, but there's also a lot of competition for these words. Now, there's also what's called the long tail. The short tail is 1 to 2 word phrases. The long tail has about 3, 4, 5, or 6 words. This is where people are really explaining what they want. Typically, they're at the end of the buying or the decision cycle, and so they're typing in exactly what they're looking for. Now, if I'm bidding on these in ads, Google Ads, these are very low competition but high conversion words because they're very specific. But it's also where we can learn the intent signals. That's what I want to know, is how people are researching and the words they use. It helps me better understand the trends, the nuances, how they are phrasing their need. So what I do is I jump into my keyword research and I start a list of about 200 to 300 or more keywords. Now, I will create a number of lists. So for example, one list, I'm going to think about the words from a buying cycle, where I will start with the short tail and move to the long tail. That's where I'm thinking about what would people type in first, 1 or 2 word phrases. And then what are the different stages of research that they would go through? Comparison, research, trying to then think about what brands are there. So I'm going to start thinking about keywords as people go through the decision cycle. My next pass through keyword research is looking at branded and non-branded terms. And I'm looking through there. Now, at this point, I am not looking at how many searches are done per keyword. I'm more interested in words than I am the numbers. I'll come back to the numbers. But right now, I'm just trying to gather as many words, and words that will help me understand, like I said here, the dimensions that people are looking for, needs, locations, demand, anything that helps me understand them. So as you can see, I'll do 2 or 3 different passes through the keyword research with specific contexts in mind. I'm not just trying to gather the top 100 words. There is a purpose to it. And when you have a purpose to it, you're putting yourself in the mind of the searcher. That's what we're trying to do. Now, also, when I get to the words, I'm trying to break them down. I'm looking at long phrases. I'm just gathering the other words besides my core keyword. And I'm going to demonstrate this. But I'm also looking for synonyms, words that, anyone who knows English, we love our synonyms. We've got 16 words for everything. And so I want to find out, what are the synonyms people are using when they are searching? Do they have a location? What exactly are they asking for? And then I'm going to bounce out of here and I am going to get into the keyword research, because that's why we're here. All right. So SE ranking. I put all my students into SE ranking when they are learning how to do SEO, because keyword ranking, keyword research, to me, is the core of all digital marketing. You see, these keywords, we don't just use them for SEO. You don't just use them for paid search. We also use them when you're creating content. That's why we have the seminar today. I'm also using them in social media because I want to know what words people are thinking about and when they're thinking about them. It also helps me understand in my analytics, what should I be looking for? How should I be looking to see how people find me and what content on my site is most popular, and am I being found for that content? I can use the same keywords in email. When you use keywords in your subject lines, it increases your open rate. So keyword research is the foundation of all digital marketing. I'm going to show you a few examples. So here, I'm going to type in a short tail term like car insurance. Now, of course, you know, if you've worked with SE ranking, you've got this whole mix of countries that you can work with. And the database is fantastic. I have taught using SE ranking in many different countries, and they've been able to access in their own language, their own information. And it's making me do this again. All right, car insurance. Now, we're getting into it. And a couple of things that I really like. Number one, it's telling me how difficult it would be to rank. This is a short tail term. So yeah, there's a high difficulty level. I can get the volume over the past year or so to see, is there a trend? But we're talking about a short tail term. And because it's short tail, there's not a lot of intent signal. And so the trend here, we don't know what exactly the intent is. The trends really become important the more we drill down into the long tail terms. And this is why we've got 3 different areas that we can look for keywords. And I love this because just for the term car insurance, we have 50,000 similar keywords here. Almost another 52,000 related keywords and low search volume. Those are our long tails. That's almost 48,000, over 48,000 terms.
Matt, can you maybe zoom in a bit? Can you maybe increase the size? Because I'm not sure if people can see.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of data on there. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. There we go. All right. Now, I love these 3 columns because I'm going to start here at the detailed report. And here's what I'm looking for. So yes, we've got our car insurance. Now, what I'm going to start doing is looking for all these dimensions that I'm looking for. And a great example here is cheap car insurance. All right. Now, cheap, that's a word. It's a dimension because someone is giving us what they're looking for. This is a primary purchase consideration. Cheap. So I've got the financial here, and we can see it here. We've got cheap, cheapest, cheap, cheaper, all kinds of things going on here. So I'm going to make a list. In fact, I'm going to add these to my plan because that is a purchase signal, an intent signal that they're giving us. And I can go down and I can look and I can see a lot of these. And yes, cheap is there. But now I can see quotes. People are looking for quotes. Now, they're probably a little further in the decision cycle. They know they need insurance. They're not looking for cheap. They're looking for quotes. They want to compare. And so again, this is another signal. And I can go through here, and I love this. I've got 1,000 pages of keywords I can go through. Don't let this be overwhelming. At my agency, when we were doing keyword research for a new client, we would spend probably 2 or 3 days just doing this because it enabled us to know more about that client than they knew about themselves based on how their customers found them, why their customers stayed with them, what was important to those customers. Keyword was the best way of doing that. So now we start getting into brands, and now I can get those brand associations. I'm going to make a note of that. I can add those into my project. Now I can get down. Here we go. Comparison. Specifically, people are asking for comparison. This is something I've been seeing a lot of in the past few years is people searching for the word best car insurance. I think it's interesting that people are asking Google to customize essentially the results based on what's best for them. Because I think all of us, we would define best differently, but people are using it to search and see what Google gives them. So again, we've got some more brands, and then there's a couple other things, and this is why I get past those first couple of pages, because now you're going to start digging in and finding some great stuff. Classic car insurance. Oh, I love this. Now, this is a different signal. You see, comparison, quote, and cheap. Those were financially based, but they were also decision based. Now we have a specific feature. They are not just looking for car insurance, they're looking for classic car insurance. That is a very specific ask, and that gives me opportunity. If I'm selling insurance and I have a specific package for classic cars, this is a great content indicator. Also, when I look at the trend, I can see that it starts trending upwards here. It started trending upward in December and high all the way through March, April, May, June, July. But at its lowest down around October. And now one of the things I can do is go make sure that that trend is the same every year. If it is, then it's repeatable, it's predictable. And I can start creating content that I know will be evergreen at that time of the year. And I can just keep updating it, keep adding to it, and keep building on it about this content. Now, we can also see some other features. Here's about renting cars and car insurance. Affordable. Again, that's another financial word. I'm going to put that into the financial word pile. Here we have Florida. Now we have a location. And so we can start adding that in. As you can see, you can start digging in, and we're only in the third page. We still have thousands of more keywords to go through. And this is absolutely what I love getting in here. Now, I'm going to get back into the classic car insurance, because if I'm thinking about this now, here we have a classic insurance, classic cars, classic car insurance. You can see the different ways that people are searching. They're kind of flipping the words around. Chances are it's not going to make a big difference in your SEO. If you've been doing SEO for a while, you know that Google will understand what's going on there and give everyone basically the same results. And so we can see what's going on here. Now, I can also see that the trend line is a little different here as we go through here. But what I also like is I can see organically who is ranking for those terms. So now this helps me set up my content marketing. When I can get a sense of, number one, classic car insurance. Now, my score here is 51. Doable. I like that. So that tells me there's not as much competition, and I can view the competition very quickly. I can go out to any of these competitors and look and see what kind of content they have. Or, and I am so happy I get to be the first one to tell you this, a new feature that SE Ranking is releasing is a content marketing feature where you add in your keywords and it will compare it to who's ranking for those keywords. It'll give you guidance as to writing content about those keywords. It'll give you a sense of how these pages are laid out. That was my favorite feature, by the way, in the evaluation phase, was seeing the layout of those pages. Who's using H1s? Who's using H2s? Who's using great HTML layout? And how is that assisting them in the rankings? So watch out for the new content marketing feature that's coming in SE Ranking. All right. Now, hopefully this has given you a sense of what I do when I start looking at keywords. Now, also, there were a couple other columns, if you remember, and that's where I'm going to get into the related keywords. This is going to help expand my search for additional words that I can look in and add to my projects here. So now here we have a near me. That's interesting. People are looking for near me. I can see, again, let me go through here, see what we're finding here. I really want to dig in. And like I said, I'm looking for the different words, not so much these numbers yet. I'm not really concerned about the numbers, but also what thing that I'm looking in. Now, here's something that's interesting. Under car insurance, people are looking to also do home insurance and car insurance. Another attribute, people looking together. I can see the results there. I can see the search volume. Now, Here is a key that is vital when we are setting up content marketing. That if I want to specifically talk about a type of insurance or a type of subject that I want to go after, I'm going to look here. Now, here we have a non-owner's car insurance. Now, this is more of a business to business. And so this tells me that this could have some opportunity here. The SERP features. The SERP features right here show me what is showing up in the search results. So if I am trying to compete for this phrase, what I need to keep in mind is in the search results, like my organic listings, they're at the bottom. What's at the top? What's at the top? Well, there are some Google, there is YouTube ads, there are reviews, and there are people also ask questions. Those things are going to push the organic stuff down. So I need to keep in mind, well, I should also create some content that's video based. I can also, the little map icon, that means it's a local entry. So I also want to look and see what kind of content is in the SERP, in the search engine results page, because content is not just limited to articles. We can create videos. We can create these questions on our page and use proper markup so that it gets caught up by Google and we can get our content up at the top of the page. So keep in mind everything else that's going to show up, not just the web page that's there. And so I'm going to continue looking through here, and then especially I'm going to spend a lot of time in the low search volume because those are my long tail terms. Now it's interesting, and I talked about synonyms before. So there's a great example. There's car, there's auto, there's motor. There's 3 different words that people use. Now, when I've got synonyms in mind, now's when I go back and I go look at the search counts. And what I can see is traditionally, at least here in the US, because I'm using a US database, car is searched on 3 times, 4 times more than the word auto. Now, if I'm somewhere else regionally, auto might be searched on more than car. Motor might be searched on more than the others. So regionally, I'm going to look at my synonyms, and that's when I care about search counts, because I want to be sure that I'm using the correct version of the synonym in proportion to the other words. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm going, because car is searched more in the US, that I'm going to neglect auto. It means that because auto is still used, when I write content, I'm going to write it naturally. And so I'm naturally going to use other synonyms. I may, in proportion, use car more, but I'm going to use the synonyms as well because it creates a more rounded, a more readable article that gets to the point and helps people find the information they want. All right. I'm not creating content for the search engine that just repeats keywords. We want to write naturally, just as we would speak. All right. I'm going to jump back into the slides here and show you now. Here's what I start doing when I get my keyword lists all together. I start organizing them by buying cycles. You can see here, I'm working from cost to consideration to their purchase. And I'm also looking at very specific things. So for example, we started putting down tools because we saw that people were looking for calculators, estimators. Well, those are tools. And from a content standpoint, those can be very valuable sources of content, valuable sources because people are searching for them. We could go see which competitors had them so that we could compete with that. But then I'm looking at what are all the words, synonyms people are looking at about cost, cheap and expensive, low, discount, also the types of insurance. Then what are the comparison words that they use? Best, compare, average, local, nearby, and then how do they search for quotes or estimates in the consideration phase? So I'm taking all these words and I'm grouping them according to intent. What is it that they want? Then I'm going to dig in. Like I said, I'm going to then start looking at what are the counts, what are the competitors, and what's the trend. Those things help me then start putting together one of the most key elements of content marketing, and that is a content calendar. You see, I'm going to put together my groups of keywords so that I know when people, now you may not always see a trend. Different products, different companies, different industries will have stronger trends than others. You may not see a specific trend. If you do see a trend, then what I want to do is start plotting these on a calendar. So for example, the first thing that goes on my content calendar are events, holidays, those types of things that I know are going to happen every year. Then anything that is specific to my industry or to my business that happens every year, that goes on the calendar. Events, then I start looking at search trends. When are people searching for specific content? When does it start to rise? When does it peak? And when does it tail off? And also, for some trends, you may see a second peak. I want to know when those are, and I start plotting that on the calendar. I can also go look at my analytics. Go look at your analytics and go see when certain pages are trending based on the content, based on the keywords, and add that in. Take a look at all the data sources you have to help you see when is content most important to people. Now, if you don't have a trend, you don't see any trend in your keywords, this is where you just start planning. What would make sense? Think about your industry, think about your products, think about when people would search for it, and start to prioritize where you're going to feature specific content throughout the year. That, if you don't have a trend, that's the next thing to do. Now, I want to look for what are the expressed needs people have. That is content ideas. The decision cycle, that leads me to content ideas. Creating content for the early decision, mid decision, late decision. I can also create content for follow-up. What happens after someone buys? What kind of content do they get? We're not limited to just acquisition. We need to keep that customer once we get them. So what kind of information do they need, and how can we build loyalty? I want to look for those annual trends. I also want to study regional word choices to make sure that I am right on track. I want to know what questions do they have? When do they ask them? Because that's going to go on the calendar. But then going back to the SERP features, what's the best channel to use? Is it an article? Is it a video? Should I go to Google? Should I take this somewhere else? Should I focus more on YouTube rather than Google? Should I focus more on social? Should I go direct through email? What is going to be the best channel to send the content that I create? Not only that, what's going to be the best media? Seeing some of those results where videos were ranking in the #1 spot, should I create a video instead of an article, or both? And then how do I present the video? What kind of words? What are the keywords? How am I presenting the thumbnail? Some people like to watch videos for how-to. Others like to read articles. So what's going to be the best media? But then, and this is where I see like SEOs, sometimes we're concerned about rankings. Content people, we're concerned about engagement. But here's the key. Business objective. What are we trying to accomplish? After someone sees our content, what do we want them to do? And that is progression. Do I want them to download something? Do I want them to register? Is there a next step? So if we're talking about the decision cycle, once they've gone from comparison, well, what now? We need to anticipate what that next step is and present that to them in that content. We don't just want to answer their question and let them go. Draw them in, tell them, here's the next step. Here's some options you may be interested in. Think about progression. Where do you want them to go after they see the content? And now you're naturally leading them to the next stage. Now, when I'm thinking about distribution, I'm thinking about it, #1, from an SEO standpoint. If I'm going to create articles, if I'm going to create content, and I want it to show up in search, I need to have this in process, probably about 9 months, so that I can get it published to the website, 3 to 6 months before I actually want it there. So I need to think long term in terms of SEO, and especially how I build out evergreen content, because I also want that content to be out there, and I also want some links to be there as well prior to that peak season. Now, in paid search, I'm using all these keywords and I'm developing a seasonal plan. How do I bid? What kind of messages do I use in the off season? What kind of messages do I use in the peak season? And how do I develop that? For social media, I'm thinking about how can I talk to people in the moment. When I know there's a trend, now I know the questions they're asking. But what photos, images, videos, stories can I present around that subject at that moment in time? And also, I'm structuring across a number of months. How can I continue this story across a couple of weeks, a couple of months? Once people have seen this, what are they going to see next? And how do we draw that in? And I'm also going to ask my social followers to participate as much as I can. I'm going to think about what are some ways that I can have them be featured or provide information. I'm trying to drive that user-generated content as well. And then I'm going to look at my analytics so that I understand if I have trends, I should see those trends reflected in the analytics as well. And like Andrew said, you're going to get a copy of this afterwards, so you don't have to be scribbling down all these notes here. I'm going to show you how another company, not in the car insurance realm, they were more in the outdoors, and this is how they applied keywords to create a very profitable result. What they found is that people, when they were searching for this area, that they were asking a lot of questions. Where is it? How far is it to get there? They were searching for maps. Because it was an unfamiliar place. People like to go hiking. This is where we started focusing that not just was it a tourism area, but it was a very active hiking area. And so people had a lot of questions about it. The problem was only 5% of the searchers actually found the pages with maps. And so they were leaving immediately when it was so hard to find. And even when they did find the page, it wasn't presented well. So we had a discovery problem, we had a content problem, we had a retention problem, all kinds of things. They had the information, but it wasn't optimized and it wasn't presented well. Now, first thing was based on the keyword research, defining specific audiences. Well, they had very active outdoor people. A lot of families were visiting, but they had a hiking and biking following because this was a prime place to do those types of things. So they defined the audiences based on the keywords, and they focused primarily on the hiking. And from the hiking, started developing the content calendar. Based on the trends, they were able to identify when certain types of hiking were popular throughout the year. I like to joke if you're looking at this, the keyword that was popular all year long was hiking survival. I love that. So if you've done any hiking, you know surviving the hike is probably the number one priority. But we would see all kinds of things: desert hiking, wilderness hiking, hiking supplies, tips. And we learned what was important to people. And it was interesting here because in December, people searched for camping gifts and hiking gifts. But you know what? Those weren't the people that do the hiking. This was friends and family members buying gifts for people that like hiking, because the hikers were buying things in March. That's when they were buying what they needed and wanted. And so these were some things that we were learning as we did the keyword research. Was the intent behind it? Who's the audience? Who's doing this? Your primary hiking months in the summer and hiking checklist. That is an incredible content marketing theme. And that has been probably, that hiking checklist has been probably the number one piece of content above everything else that has been created, that just has been every year the number one source of visits and then leads into the business. Now, we took that and then also broke that down to month and month, looking at which keywords are rising, which keywords are at their peak, what are the repeatable calendar events that we know. Things such as like Walk Your Pet Month, Heart Month, Chocolate and Wine Festival going on, Athletic Training Month, those types of things, National Park Week. These are more of the national events, world events that we can put in because it's great content if we can connect these things to that. But then we looked at, where is our local expertise? What kind of expertise do we have in-house that we can write about? What content do people want? Do we need to go externally and develop or find content? So this was where we started thinking about, what can we develop in-house? What do we need other assets for? And then our progression content. We called this the moments resources. That was, what can we get people to do that gets them to progress to the next level? So this was our survival checklist. This were contests, a photo contest, a guide, and everything started revolving around this hiking guide. Because when we started looking at the content that we put together, people were searching for these types of information. They were also looking at, what's a day hike? What's a 2-day hike, 3-day hike, those types of things. Distances. They wanted local advice. Now, I can also add to this. If you're B2B, best practices, thought leadership, how do you get the most out of the experience? That is probably a great, great subject. And when you find keywords that really, that's the intent. That's what they want to know. So we've got our how-to content. We've got our interests and ingredients. I kind of look at this as a meal. We've got our ingredients. We've got our how-to, but then we present it. You can write articles. What are the images that go along with the articles? What's the video that we can use to add to the article, to market separately? How can we cut it and use it? How do we drive reviews around this? And then how do we slice the same content to use it in Instagram, Facebook, blogs, LinkedIn, to drive visits back to the website? And that's where the primary content was going to be, where the articles, the videos, everything was driving people back to a primary destination to get the information that they wanted. And so now, included on this, maps and infographics, because that brought us back to one of the main problems. People were looking for maps, couldn't find them. And so that was a focus of what we wanted to create. It created a hiking guide that anyone could download. And now, if you registered, you got the full color, full hiking guide with everything on it. And it was all, it introduced the region. It introduced everything they needed. It had the checklist that they wanted. It had all of these different recipes of keyword, media, and combination put together that people could download and be ready and know what to expect before they even got on site. And that became the central piece of content, because as you're developing all this content, it's not independent. All of the content that was developed ultimately got folded into this hiking guide. And so think about that in your content marketing. The idea is not to just create 100 pieces of content. What would happen if you put those 100 pieces of content together? What would that create? What kind of resource would that be? And when you think about that first, what's the ultimate resource that we could create? Well, now your content marketing is focused on a finished product that you'll always be adding to, or that you could always draw from in order to create new things. Also, heavy emphasis on the maps, downloadable maps, things that people could find, and making it much easier. And then thinking about what kind of content is awareness, what kind of content makes good consideration, what kind of content is around the conversion level, how do we order that and show the progression? This is what we thought of from the content development standpoint. Then you can see what an average Monday looked like when the blog posts were made, Facebook, Instagram. Now, all of these, the hashtags are pre-planned, the links are pre-planned, everything is approved probably a month in advance, so that when the day comes, all of this stuff is automated if it can be, but it's ready to go. And that's what an average day would look like in doing and executing this content plan. Now, give you a sense of how this company benefited from this. We took a 2-week snapshot of their primary tourism time. And initially, they were around 14,000 visits, about 2 minutes time on site, a 43% bounce rate, and $1.20 revenue per visitor. After 2 years of implementing this content marketing plan, the visitors went up in that same 2-week time frame. 2 weeks later, almost 500,000 visitors. Time on site went to 8 minutes, average 10. Now here's the big one: $10 revenue per visitor rather than $1.20. That is what makes people happy, is when you see financial impact from your content marketing. And that's what you drive to, rather than just the engagement metrics. I want to know what was the bottom line, because that's what makes people really take interest in what you're doing. All right, couple of things. Go through those questions, and I'm going to leave it open for some questions here. And just in case, I do have a few extra minutes we can spend answering questions. But you connect with me on LinkedIn. Andrew also talked about the podcast, Endless Coffee Cup. You can find that on any of your primary podcast networks. And then also, I have training courses. I have a digital marketing certification course that once you sit for that course and pass that, then you can take the OMCA, the Digital Marketing Certified Associate Exam. And there's 20% off the course if you've attended this webinar and use the code SE Ranking. And so that does it for the presentation part. And Andrew, I'm going to hand this back over to you.
Great. That was very interesting to see that you do a lot of research, and I can't imagine how much time went into analyzing every single keyword. But I see that the process is, it can get very professional. It can get very professional, because I'm not sure that everyone does it like that, and like a lot of guesswork people rely on. But I can see that you're not relying on any guesswork, and everything makes a lot of sense. So I'm hoping that our viewers also learned a lot of new things today, and we are actually throwing into the chat the different links to Matt's podcast, to his marketing course, and also you can see that there's you have a special discount on offer for that. But let's go over to the questions. Okay, so this one didn't fit into one question, like one message, so it's a 3-parter. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen. Let's see, you have an e-commerce site that sells 100 products that are very similar. I'm thinking like a phone case, maybe.
Yeah.
The only difference is the design of these products. So yeah, it's like something like that. Should you try to target a different keyword within each one of these products? And the final part of the question, or should you just focus on the keywords within the collection page of these products?
Wow. So, this is interesting, because probably your short tail is going to be more important, because people are going to be, like you said, if it's phone cases or something like that, where we have thousands of very similar but only minor differences. In that case, what I'm focusing on, what are features or attributes that I can start dividing? I want to have a very clear hierarchy of what these products are for. Then we start getting into, and really, number one, just start with a great e-commerce structure and content hierarchy. Number two, you're going to have to create some original content. That's the downside of it, all right? Because chances are, if someone else is selling the same thing, they've got the same exact content on their site. The only way you're going to distinguish yourself is by, again, what do people need when they're looking for this? What's the need behind the need? Do they, if it's a phone case, do they want to be noticed? Do they want safety? Do they want to make sure nothing will break? Do they want to be able to keep other things with it? And so think about the needs that people have, and then what would be the ideal ways to meet those needs. And this is where we see things all the time. I was just looking at this the other day, looking at webcams. And it was interesting, because what ranks in Google are people writing about webcams, not the webcams themselves. It's the review sites. It's the, we tried 6 different webcams, and here's what they are: webcams by price. So it's a common object, But what people want is to answer a question. And so think about those questions, create content around that, and then link to the ideal products that you recommend. Then they'll get in and choose features like color, size, or other attributes, something like that.
All right, great. Thank you, Matt. We have a question from William. How do you bill for a couple of days of keyword research?
That's a great question. All right, Bill, you're an agency guy. Okay. I build that as part of so when a couple of things before we took anyone as a client, they had to have a research process. I wanted to know what I was getting into, because especially if we didn't build a website, we didn't build their app, we haven't done anything with their social. That research project was number one. I need to know everything that's going on. So it was a complete audit of their entire marketing, their digital marketing process and what was out there. We didn't want there to be any surprises afterwards. So there was a cost for that, and it was substantial. After that, if they signed an agreement, then we had an initial phase of ongoing research, implementation, and it was a first pass at optimization. After that, we went then into a monthly phase of working on that. So the 2 to 3 days of keyword research, that was all part of the optimization, but also, as I mentioned here, it carried over into all other areas of marketing.
Great, thank you. I have a question from Anastasia. How do you clean up your keyword list? How can you tell if one keyword is more valuable for your business than the other? Like, I'm thinking this is because you were showing how to build it from scratch. What would you do if you got a business and you had to work on it? How would you clean it up?
This is where I like the function in SE ranking where I can select the keywords. So I'll select a few hundred, and then I got that in a project. And typically what I'll do is I'll export it to Excel. I love managing keywords in Excel. And there's a lot of functions you can do. What I want to know is what words typically come before my primary keyword, what words typically come after, and start getting a sense of what's there. As far as value, I mean, that really depends on what your business is doing. If it's a keyword you didn't know existed, but it's something that people are asking for, it's the same thing, you just call it something different, then that's high value, because that's teaching you, maybe I need to call it what people want. And use their language, or value. What do you mean by value would be my question. If you want to rank for something but it's not relevant, then that's not value. If it is relevant, well, then that's value. And you want to make sure that you've got the content on the site to back up the keyword that you are focusing on.
Great, thank you. I think a question is very similar to the one that we had. Well, it's not similar. It's like sort of a second part of it, follow up from a different person. So if you have 100 products that all have crucial details that need to be included in the product description, will this negatively affect SEO because of duplicate content? Even if the words have a different order, will Google still see this as like a cannibalization, for example?
Okay, so an e-commerce catalog with hundreds or thousands of very similar products. I love the example of the phone cases. They're all basically going to be the same, and there's going to be slight feature differences. That's not duplicate content. All right. Duplicate content is when you have the exact same page at multiple URLs. That means that something's wrong in the site, and it's creating something. Now, the issue is if you're selling the same thing as other people are selling and they're using the same database of information. If it's indistinguishable that your site is no different than somebody else's site who sells the same thing, that's a form of duplicate content, but it's not penalized. It's just, why would Google rank one over the other if it's exactly the same? And so that's why, from a content standpoint, yes, you look at some of these other e-commerce retailers, they're telling stories with products. They're marketing them in very creative ways, but what they're doing is creating new content and then including their products into that content. that's how you distinguish it and avoid some of that duplication that 10, 20, maybe 100 other sites would have if they have the same product.
Yeah, thank you. But I still think like example with the phone cases, it's very difficult to think of like if the image is like you have unique images, then that's a great way of making them separate. But if it's like the material is the same across all of them, yeah, you have to get creative for sure there. So maybe we'll set up a different webinar how to take care of this situation when you have a lot of different. Okay, so I see that we have one more question, and then guys, in case you have any more questions, guys, please ask them right now because we will be ending the webinar very soon. So the question that we have here is, how important is the use of exact match keywords in content? And with a follow-up, for example, if I see a search query with a high search volume like iPhone Best Buy, can I write a sentence like, you can get the new iPhone at Best Buy?
So, okay. I think what's happening here is I think you're mixing up like the paid search targeting of like exact match search. So if I think if you're writing specifically about ads, so if you're talking about writing a sentence, that would be a sentence in an ad if you're exact matching. If so, then yeah, the exact match still, I'm trying to remember. I still have to look and see what exactly an exact match is because they change it. Some of them allow words in there and sometimes it will switch. I'm not sure if exact match allows switching of words. But I think you're good with that. It sounds good. I definitely would look and see, but Google's instructions for what's an exact match and what's a phrase match and things like that. I think that would be I think I'd probably go for a phrase match now that I look and think about it than an exact match because that will allow additional words or anything like that there. So yeah, I think you've got it. But double check.
Yeah, I'm guessing that there's still confusion about this. People are still confused if they have to use it the way you search for, because you can search for without using articles and so on, and people just still get confused with the question: will their content be found for like a search query with a high search volume, like I said, by iPhone? But if I say buy a new iPhone at Best Buy, is that the same keyword? Is that the same result? So I'm guessing that's consult Google, but
it's kind of tough. That's one of those things you can play with and that's the thing. I will go in between exact match and phrase matches to kind of see which one is giving me the kind of keywords that I want. And so, like I said, Google's instructions about exact and phrase are always kind of murky. Even their examples are murky. And so it's just part of where I'll just try it and see what gives me the best results.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Just one more thing. I wanted to show our viewers a little sneak peek of what we have ahead in SE Ranking. So yeah, this was the Q&A. So just you have the opportunity to try out SE Ranking. If you haven't yet, we have a lot of different tools. And these are just some of them. The list is like 30 plus tools. So be sure to check out the free trial if you haven't yet. We also have an SEO basics course that you can follow for free if you have an access to SE Ranking. So once again, also be sure to check that out if you already have access. And I want to remind about the podcast that Matt brought up and also his digital marketing course as well. And what I wanted to show on the screen, one second, let me share the right, because I just shared one window. I wanted to show SE Ranking. Oh, it's switched to French. One sec. Yeah, thank God I know enough French to change the language, because that's a huge problem in a lot of different platforms. Thank God it wasn't Japanese or anything like that. Matt talked about the content marketing tools that are coming out, I think within a month. So should be sure to keep an eye on our materials that we publish. It is coming out very, very soon. And In terms of optimizing pages, we already have a couple of tools in case you want to make sure that you're targeting the right keywords. We have two tools. One is called the on-page SEO checker. So you can use this to optimize existing pages based on what works for your competitors. So just select the competitors that matter to you most, and you will get a not a report. It's sort of like a checklist of what needs to be done to your existing page to bring it up and to outrank the existing competition. So it's a very useful AI-based tool. And we also have another AI-powered tool, the SERP Analyzer, which also helps you understand what needs to be, what the structure of a page needs to be before you create it, based on the current competition there is for a keyword SERP of your selection. So we have two new AI-based tools that will help you optimize new and existing web pages. And in terms of the content tool, we are also creating something that will help you write out text. So maybe you will be able to create 50 different descriptions for your phone case if that's the situation with you. So that is what I wanted to share. Let me hide that again. And so no more questions while I was showing this. I want to, a lot of people are thanking us. So Matt, this has been great. I got more than I could have hoped for. It was a lot of, I wish that we had more time to dive into even more details, but I'm already working in content for a couple of years, and you just showed me a couple of more things, like the trends, when the content has to be published. That is something that I'm going to be looking out for sure. And I'm just going to rewatch the whole thing just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew.
Take care, Matt. Yeah, great doing this with you. Bye.
Thank you.